So much has been written and said about the balance we try to attain between our personal lives, precious, and our professional lives, important. All of us know the workaholic, whether we see that guy or woman in the mirror, or we recognize him or her in our organization or in our personal lives, friendships, family relationships. We know people who can't seem to or can't seem to want to turn it off. They come home, but they're still at work. They go on vacation, but they're still at work. They're processing silently while they're eating a dinner, not what's being said around the table, not what's being said throughout the course of the evening or the weekend or the vacation, but what's going on in their work lives, in their professional world. And as important as that is, and those conversations are, and those books and lectures are, I think it's also important to recognize, maybe now more than ever in your life and in mine, the importance of acknowledging the human being that comes to work, not just the professional who's so good, so skilled at what he or she, what you do, but the person that you are, that you bring to work, the person with all the complexities of your life, your story that suddenly butts up with a client, your story that suddenly butts up with the front door of the office. Wherever it is that you are, you're bringing your whole self to work. And maybe that makes you fabulous at what you do. Maybe that's part of why you're engaging, charismatic, warm, because people know that you're empathetic to their own struggles, their own existence as human beings, not just as clients and as coworkers. But I think it's worth thinking about. In times of uncertainty in your life, phases, times when you just don't know what tomorrow or next year will hold, will I, when will I, how will I, all those questions come up, to recognize the impact that those have on the rest of our lives, personal and professional. So I'm here with a particular task. Call me your contentment officer, if you will. I'm not Lauren. I'm not going to ask you for progress reports. I'm not going to ask you for deliverables. I'm not Jeff. I'm not going to ask you for spreadsheets. I'm Ron Lee Paz. I'm somebody whom many of you know from our work together in the past, conversations we've had. I'm somebody who's known Lauren for many years, and despite that, still likes him a lot. And my aim here is to share with you a series of videos, and through that, I hope a series of conversations to look at who we are as people, to look at who you are and what you're going through in your lives, as much as you want to divulge that or share that, but at least to get you to reflect on it. Not just to think about yourself as your professional self, but to realize all that you bring to your professional realm of your life. I want to ask you as often as possible in this conversation and the ones that will follow to lift your eyes, to look up, to get perspective, to step back from what you're doing, to step back from your concept of who you are and what other people expect and demand from you, and to recognize your own simple, complex humanity, yourself. So you might want to know who I am and why I have a task of bringing these conversations to you. Well, one is Lauren asked me to, based on the many conversations that he and I have and the work that I've done with you on leadership retreats in the past as well. But also, I'll tell you a little about myself professionally. I started work at age 13. It was ice cream and then more delicious ice cream. I didn't actually gain a lot of weight during those years. Maybe I got sick of ice cream, but now I like it again. After that, I went to the Air Force, and after the Air Force, I went into broadcasting work and some theater work overseas and in the U.S., and I went into management consultancy. And I worked with one of the top consulting firms on client projects throughout the world, mostly in Europe. It was a major automotive company, a pharmaceutical company, an airline, some big clients where I learned a lot about people, about communication, and about managing change in particular. I then went on, speaking of change, to becoming an opera singer, something that took me around the world many times. And then after that, I shifted again, and that was toward religion and spirituality and that kind of leadership, which is something I do today. And today, in addition to communal religious leadership, leading a large community, I also am engaged in something particularly worthwhile and important to me personally, which is international interfaith dialogue, fostering great and meaningful dialogue that hopefully brings forth not just words, but change in behavior and in understanding. I had the pleasure and the privilege of meeting and blessing Pope Francis in the Vatican about a year ago. And then more recently, I met with world religious leaders in Istanbul and in Rome, as well as in the United States. So that's a little of a brief resume, essentially. Now what I want to do is leave you with a story. I was working on a team brought together by UCLA Anderson School and Johnson & Johnson. We were working in East Africa, developing leadership in the healthcare realm. And one of my colleagues from Uganda told me a story of Russian Jewish origin. So let me share that with you. A man is walking at night in a forest, an older man, and suddenly hears a shout, "Stop!" And he looks and he sees a guard pointing a rifle at him. And the man slowly, with a smile, puts up his hands. And the man shouts, the officer, he says, "Who are you? What are you doing here? Where are you going?" And the man says, "Ask me those questions again." And the officer, looking over the barrel of his rifle, shouts again, "Who are you? What are you doing here? Where are you going?" And the man says, "How much do they pay you to ask me those questions?" And the officer tells him how many kopecks a day he gets, or a week, or a month. And the old man says, "I'll pay you double if every time you see me, you ask me those 3 questions. Who are you? What are you doing here? And where are you going?" I hope to see you soon and continue our conversation.